up, kings and queens? It's your boy Dan from Daft Previews, and today I'm going to take you through an early preview for all the NBA player props that you need to know about for Game 1 of the NBA Finals between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. So if it's your first time checking out the channel, I do encourage you to subscribe because I do this every single day. I share my screen, we go through Outlier, I take you through all the key players, their matchups, their form lines, the things I like, the things I don't, and I do all this to give you all the information that you need to make the best bets possible. If that sounds interesting, so before we start previewing the player props, I want to let you know some futures bets that I've taken off the top. I've taken Luka Doncic to make the most three-pointers made in this series. I got it for about plus 110, I believe. It's still starting to come down. It is still a plus money play if that's something you're interested in. I think he's going to take the most three-pointers, and he's going to make the most three-pointers in this series. Outside of that, no other futures bets for me. That's the only one I've got locked in at the moment. Now let's get so obviously, using Outlier, if you're interested in using Outlier, 7-day free trial in the video description below. Getting this video out a couple of days early to give you guys a chance to watch it in full, watch it back a couple of times, have a look at your sportsbook, and maybe look at Outlier at the same time. So in Game 1 of this series, the Boston Celtics, 6.5 point favorites. The total plus over 214.5 points. Now, looking at the season data, I think 2 games. Boston smashed them in both games, but Dallas are a very different team now at this point. If you want some extra insights, the Celtics have won 8 straight games against Western Conference opponents, and Boston Celtics first half money line. They've won the first half in each of their last 5 games against the Dallas Mavericks. At the same time, Dallas have been machines on the road so far this postseason. They've covered the line in 7 out of their last 8, if you do like the Mavs to cover the spread. I personally don't bet sides and totals, but I thought that information would be handy for you. Now let's jump straight in. I want to start with the Dallas Mavericks on the road. Let's see what the numbers are looking like. I'm assuming the lines have started to move because some people bet in this shit nice and early, but hopefully we're early enough to still find some value. So I want to start with Luka Doncic, the big dog from the Dallas Mavericks. Quick look at the injuries. Kristaps Porzingis is the main one we need to think through. Here's a game time decision, but I'll talk through the Boston Celtics props and any other Mavericks props which Kristaps Porzingis may impact. But let's talk about Luka Doncic. His points line, 31.5 points. He's averaging 29.1 in his last 10. He's covered this in 4 out of his last 5 games, though. So as soon as that Minnesota series started, he covered this in 4 out of the 5. So he was cleaning up. Do look at the head-to-head numbers against Boston. Last 4 games, he's covered this 3 times, averaging 33.75 points. Obviously, none of these were in the playoffs, so slightly different scheme, different amount of energy expended into this one. But the Boston Celtics have struggled defending point guards all season. So my casual thoughts, without over-analyzing the data, is Luka over in points. 31.5, I think something that Luka should be able to cover quite easily against this Celtics team. And I think he's going to cash this more times than not. In the playoffs, you do have limited opportunities, though. So it really could be... It could be one of those games where he doesn't, but I do like the over. If we think about the way that Luka Doncic scores, a lot of isolation, a lot of pick and roll, a lot of stuff above the break, and a lot of that really eats into this Boston Celtics. They're terrible defending above the break. They're terrible defending the pick and roll ball handlers, and they've been giving points up in the paint, and Luka been relentless driving into the paint as well. So I think this is a good matchup. The only concern that I do have with it is how are Boston going to play defensively. So I'm not going to be relying too much on regular season data through this series. The Dallas Mavericks especially, very different team these days. But Luka over in points, it's my gut feel. I think 31.5 should be too easy for him. So that's where my gut is telling me to go. I think Kyrie might be a little bit slow out the gate. His matchup is a little bit more difficult, I would say, given the mismatch in size and stuff like that. Hasn't performed well against Boston in Boston since the lucky stomping. So I think Luka's going to be that guy. So I do like the points. I wanted to see his first quarter points prop. It is at 8.5. He has covered this in 4 straight games against Boston, averaging 12.7. If we look at his last 10 games, he's covered this only 4 times. So 8.5, it is high enough to scare me away from it. At 7.5, I could be tempted to play it. So that's a little bit too high for me. But at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised actually if we see Luka cover that line. Looking at his rebounds now, his line's at 8.5. He's covered this in 8 out of his last 10 games, averaging 10.5 rebounds. If you look at the head-to-head data in 4 games, Luka's averaging 11.75 boards. So covering this quite well. If Kristaps plays, I probably like this. Look, even without Kristaps, actually, I do like Luka's rebounds. And the reason why is the Boston Celtics do tend to play 5 out, which means they usually have a stretch big on the floor at all times. Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, which is going to pull the Dallas Mavericks bigs out of the paint. And Luka Doncic usually finds himself defending that weak side anyway. So there should be easy rebounds available for Luka Doncic. So I do like the over in his rebounds, and it's not because of these numbers. A lot of it is the place at all, but at the same time, these numbers look good too. So I do like the over in boards. If we look at his assist prop, 8.5 assists for Luka Doncic. He's averaging 8.4 in his last 10. Against the Boston Celtics, he's covered this in 3 out of his last 4. Bring in both of those games this season, 13 and 11 assists. So he's been a bit of a beast. In the playoffs, though, can be a little bit harder to come across these assists. So even though the numbers are looking nice in the head-to-head data, his last 10, not as convincing. So I'd probably choose not to play his assists. I wouldn't bet his unders. I just wouldn't be able to take his overs with any confidence, especially on the road. On the road, we can see he's covered in only 2 of his last. Let's just look at the road, actually, before I start making shit up. So where are the playoff road games? Playoff road games start here. So he's actually been pretty decent. 5 out of his last 9 road games in the playoffs, he's covered this assist line. But we're looking at just over 50% there. So the numbers aren't terrific. So the assist prop, I prefer to stay away from it. His 3-point line has moved up to 4. He has covered this in 5 out of his last 10, averaging 4 3-pointers made. In head-to-head matchups against Boston this season, he's gone under in all 4 games. This season and last. My apologies. He's only averaging 7.8 attempts, which is quite low. But if you look at his last 10, he's averaging 9.1. So in the playoffs, we're seeing Luka take more 3-pointers compared to the regular season. So again, I'm not putting too much stock into that regular season form. But 4 3-pointers is a lot. 3.5, I might be able to play it at the 4. Will you risk the push? Not for me. So I have to pass on that. But I do like Luka's points, and I do like Luka's rebounds. Now let's get to the magician. It's Kyrie Irving. First prop. Do we look at the under 4.5 points in the first quarter for Kyrie Irving? I think yes. 4.5 at minus 111. Oh, it'll be a sweaty 7 to 8 minutes. But the under has cashed in 8 of his last 10 games. 2 games against the Boston Celtics since he joined the Dallas Mavericks. He actually scored 6 points in both of those games. So I probably lean to the under, but not a bet that I am willing to take. His points line is at 23.5. 2 games against Boston. And he went for 23 and 19 points, going under his points line in both games this season. His minutes were decent. His shot volume was high, but his percentages were ass, 45 and 39%. At the same time, Kyrie really started to peak towards the end of the season. So if we look at his last 10, he has only covered this in 3 out of his last 10 games, averaging 20.9 points. But that Minnesota series, he was a little bit better. 3 out of the 5 in those 3 games, he scored 30 plus. So I think in game 1, I don't know if there's been any media or anything like that about Kyrie Irving and to motivate him any further, like the Minnesota Timberwolves did. But I'd probably still lean to the under. The Boston Celtics do have good transition defense. Kyrie does get out in transition a little bit. And they're pretty good defending in isolation as well, where Kyrie does manage to score a lot of his points. Kyrie, not as effective as Luka getting to the basket, meaning he can't get there as easy as Luka does. When he does there, he does convert quite well. But I think in game 1 of this series, I would lean to the under. I don't want to bet the under, but that's definitely the way that I'm going. So I'll probably just choose not to play his points prop. His assist numbers at 4.5. He's covered this in 5 out of his last 10 in head-to-head matchups. Under in his assists in both games against Boston, 7 potential assists as an average. In his last 10, he's averaging 10.5 potential assists, but a lot of these potential assists early in that OKC series. Throughout the Minnesota series, his potential assist volumes have been down. So this is more of a pause. Let's wait. Let's see how this goes. His rebound line is at 3.5, which is quite low. He's hit that in 4 of his last 10, though. Makes sense. 3.1 is an average, only 7.5 rebound chances. 2 games against Boston, he's gone over this. 6 and 4 boards for Kyrie, 13 and 5 rebound chances. So 9 rebound chances. A 3.5 with a new opponent who tends to play a bit of 5 out. They might be looking to attack Kyrie as often as possible, but I think Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they're probably fancy themselves going one-on-one with PJ Washington and Jones Jr. So, look, Kyrie, similar to Luka, could find himself getting a lot of rebounds. I'll probably lean to the over in his boards, but at minus 125, probably not the best look, but I'll add it to my short list anyway. Take as many early bets as I can, but thinking about the short list, I could always go back to it. His 3-pointers made prop is at 2.5. He's covered this in 4 out of his last 10. And somewhat decent defending the 3-point line. He's covered this in one of the 2 games against Boston, 7 attempts. So he didn't shoot very well in these games. So there is upside to that. Towards the last 4 games against the Minnesota Timberwolves, he started to get more volume up. So on volume alone, I think Kyrie could definitely cover the 2.5. So I'd lean to the over on that as well. I don't love it as much as the Luka Doncic plays, but I think it's still a good look regardless. 2.5 for someone like Kyrie. Can definitely see that happening. What else do we have? And who do we have from the Dallas Mavericks? Let's go with Daniel Gafford. Let's see what we can try to predict here for Daniel Gafford. I wouldn't say he has a tough matchup. Well, if Kristaps plays, it is a tough matchup, but I wouldn't know how to describe it. It's probably a more awkward matchup for Daniel Gafford because he's going to be defending the perimeter a lot more. His points line is at 9.5, though. He's covered this in 9 out of his last 10 games. So even Chet plays on the perimeter as well. Daniel Gafford managed to get it done. Played Boston once since joining the Dallas Mavericks. Got 0 points in that game. Only got 6 minutes. So his role is completely different now. It really just depends how these Boston Celtics are going to defend him. If we think about who they played in the previous series, it was Miles Turner, but he plays nothing like Daniel Gafford. Series prior to that against Cleveland, Jared Allen didn't play. So there was a bit of Evan Mobley stuff. There was a bit of Bam action. No real players that you can compare Daniel Gafford to that the Boston Celtics have faced so far this season. So it'd be interesting to see how do the Boston Celtics defend Luka and Kyrie driving to the rim. Do they look to stop them, freeing up Gafford for some lobs? Or do they let them take those difficult shots inside and stop Gafford from getting all these dunks? So it's a bit of a chess match, which is why you probably don't want to put too many bets on in game 1, regardless of how excited you are. Sorry, his points line's at 8.5, my bad. 8 of his last 10 games. Doesn't change things too much. But his rebound line, so this is low for him, 5.5. He's averaging 6.8 rebounds in his last 10 games. And the 5.5 is most likely because the Boston Celtics do allow the second fewest rebounds to center so far this year. And that's because their bigs stand out of the paint. So they're stretching the floor a lot, which is partly why I like Luka's rebound. So Daniel Gafford's rebounds have come down. Luka's rebound line hasn't gone up. I'm assuming PJ Washington's line has probably moved up because Kyrie's line hasn't moved up either. So Daniel Gafford gets a reduced line here, which means there could be value elsewhere. But at the same time, there could be value in Daniel Gafford to get these 5.5 rebounds to 6 boards. So, look, I'd probably lean to the over, but not a bet that I can take with any confidence, especially if he's going to be stuck on the perimeter a lot and up on some pick and rolls. So, Daniel Gafford, it's a bit of a pause for me. Let's get to PJ Washington. I'm very interested to see his line. But his 3-point line, always a good look. Minus 119 according to Outlier. So this is one that probably moves quickly. In other games, I've been trying to get him at 1.5, and every time I do, it moves to 150. So I'm going to look at this. PJ Washington to make 2 3-pointers in any game is a good look, purely because Luka's going to get him wide open. He's going to take a whole lot of shots. So he's covered this in 9 out of his last 10 games, averaging 7.8 attempts. He's played the Boston Celtics once since joining Dallas. He made 3 3-pointers and he took 9 attempts. So that's the type of shit I'm looking for there. If he can 9 attempts, I'm confident he can make 2 of those bad boys. So I do like PJ Washington's 3-pointers made prop. I like it every time it's at 1.5, regardless of who the matchup is. His points line is at 11.5. 6 out of his last 10 head-to-head matchups, scored 17 points the last time they played, but I don't care too much about that. At 11.5, that line seems just about right. So I'd probably I'd probably lean to the over, to be honest, on PJ Washington. 11.5, he should be able to make Minnesota better defensively than the Boston Celtics, I would say, in defending the role players like PJ Washington. So I probably lean to the over, but I do like the 3-point prop a little bit more. Let's get to the rebound line. So PJ Washington's rebound line is at 5.5. So his rebound line hasn't moved up either. So that's very interesting. So Daniel Gafford's rebound line has come down. Are they expecting just less rebounds overall in this game? I'm not too sure. But he's covered 5.5 boards in 7 of his last 10 games. The lowest he's had is 5 in that span. He's averaging 7.6 the last time he played Boston. Even though Dallas got smoked, he still managed to pull down 7 rebounds from 11 rebound chances. Looking in his last 10 games, he's averaging 12.8 rebound chances, but that's blown out probably a little bit by this game where he had 20 rebound chances. So let's reduce that a little bit. 11 to 12 rebound chances is what he needs. What he's averaging, sorry. And 11 to 12 rebound chances, and he only needs to get 6 boards. Give me that. I like what we're seeing from PJ Washington in this one. His assist prop, I don't think anyone wants to play PJ Washington with assists. I don't, that's for sure. So I'll pass on that. Who else we got up in this? Let's talk about Derrick Jones Jr. So very interested to see how open they leave this man. This first quarter points line at 1.5 looks like a bit of a steal. He's cashed this in 8 of his last 10. Didn't score in the first quarter in the 2 games against Boston earlier this year, but role reversal, quite different. You just need him to make 1 basket in the first quarter. I don't hate that, but I won't be betting it. His points line is at 8. 6 out of his last 10. Didn't score well against Boston this year. So for Derrick Jones Jr., definitely on there for defense. I wouldn't be making plays on Derrick Jones Jr. I'd be really just watching to see this first game to see how it plays out. Next up, we got D Live. Let's talk about Derek Lively. Similar to Gafford, he's going to have a more awkward matchup in this one. He's going to be tasked in moving his feet, just banging down low. But his points line, 7.5. He's cashed in 6 of his last 10. He's versus the Boston Celtics twice this season. And 6 and 15 points. So he has had some success against them, 24 and 23 minutes. He should get about 25 minutes in this one, potentially more, provided that neck is at full strength. But similar to Gafford, I'd probably want to hold on this, but I'd lean to the over. 7.5 is not a bad number. I think what was Gafford, 8.5? I'd probably hesitate on that, but at 7.5, I like the over for Derek Lively, but minus 130. So your daily fantasy apps, probably a better play here for Derek Lively, but I don't mind the over for him there. His assist could be a good look, 1.5. So he cashed this very well. All games he played against the Minnesota series, but that was based on how Minnesota were playing defense. So if Derek Lively could get the ball as a roller on that short roll, he'll definitely be able to find people. If he's getting offensive rebounds, he'll be kicking that ball out as well. So the Lively assist play, plus 1.5. I mean, 1 plus 120, I don't hate it. I know against Boston this year, only got 1 assist in both of those games, but I'm not too concerned about that. So something worth looking into, in my opinion, is take Derek Lively. And looking at his rebound line, that's at 7.5. So if he's got the second highest line behind Luka, 2 games against Boston, 8 and 4 rebounds. Looking at his last 10, averaging 7.8, 6 of his last 10 games. So, yeah, I don't necessarily hate that for Derek Lively, but, is just who's going to get these boards if Boston are, in fact, going to play 5 out. So that's my main hesitation. I'm going to have a quick look at the Boston Celtics, how the centers they've played against have rebound against their line. So just let me suss that out real quick. So Miles Turner, for example, in the 4 games, he did cover his line twice. He had 10 rebounds, then 4 rebounds, then 10 rebounds, then 4 rebounds once again. Cleveland, they didn't run a true center that whole series. So it was a whole lot of Evan Mobley, really. And Evan Mobley didn't rebound well in that series either. So, Evan Mobley went under in 4 straight games, I believe. So, yeah, I'd be just a little bit hesitant. I think a lot of the 4s and the 3s, a lot of the guys on that weak side are the ones who rebounded well against the Celtics. Pascal Siakam, Naismith, some pretty good rebounding games. Isaiah off the bench, even Obi Toppin off the bench rebounded quite well against them. So those types of players, you're looking at PJ Washington and Luka Doncic. So Derek Lively, I'm going to have to pass on the boards. Let's just watch this game and see how it plays out and make some adjustments from there. So I'd just say be cautious when betting on a lot of these guys. I think the last one worth a look is Jaden Hardy. Now, it's really just his points prop. So his line's at 4.5. In Minnesota, he was covering very well. 4 straight games, 8, 7, 13, and 7 points for Jaden Hardy. So the best scorer they have right now off the bench, whereas the Celtics probably rely on Peyton Pritchard to do a little bit of that work. and they'll come on and play similar roles, shorter minutes, but should have high usage rate in that span. I just question. My only reservation about Jaden Hardy is whether he's going to get enough minutes. So even what he was getting between 8 and 12 minutes, that's pretty low. Thankfully, his volume of shots were pretty high. His percentages were okay. Had a couple of good shooting games as well. So Jaden Hardy, though, it's a pretty generous play. But I do lean to the over for him on his points prop. But you're kind of banking on he's going to get minutes, he's going to be aggressive, and he's going to be effective in that time. So you can cover 4.5 points very easily. We saw that against Minnesota. But again, we don't know how Boston are going to play defense. So that's my only reservation, but I still, being degenerate at all, I still like it. You know what I'm saying? The breaks real quick with this one. I need your help. I have a survey in the video description below. And what I want you to do is I want you to open that survey and answer a few questions for me. Why? The reason why is because I'm planning on creating an online course for all things sports betting, based on all coaching sessions I have, all the private messages I get. There are a lot of gaps in people's knowledge out there, and I hope if I create a course, we can put all that to bed. But me create a course, it's probably going to be 40 to 50 hours of work, creating content, video, modules, learning, all this type of stuff. So it's a big body of work if I'm going to explore it. I need your help. I want you to fill out that survey for me, and that's going to let me know whether it's worth creating the course or not. So if you can help me out, it only take a couple minutes of your time. Complete that survey for me, and once the NBA is done, I can get to work, or maybe in between the NBA games, I can get to work if everything checks out. So please help me out. Speaking of helping me out, like, sub, drop me a comment, because those things get these videos rolling, get it in front of people's eyes. The other thing is check out Chalkboard, Dabble Fantasy. If you don't have any of those apps and you do have access to them, I encourage you to sign up, use a code DAFT, or use those links in the video description, and I get a little bit of a kickback. So support me, get me out of the hood, because my ultimate goal is to create content just like this, full-time, across a range of sports, and do all this type of stuff. And I can't do that without the support of you guys. So let's get back to the preview. Let's go. All right, we're taking a look at these Boston Celtics now, and we've got to start with Jayson Tatum. So Jayson Tatum, I do not like betting on this guy. Very talented, but I hate watching him play. You want to talk about poor shot selection, this man will do it for you. Let's start with his points. His line is at 27.5 points. He's covered this in 4 out of his last 10. In head-to-head matchups against Dallas, 4 consecutive games, he's gone to the over. Now, I would just say caution for this. 1, Dallas in the regular season was ass. They're nothing like they are now. They're a completely different team in this playoffs. But at the same time, Jayson Tatum has good form against them. If we think about, how did Tatum score his points? Well, apart from taking bad shots, we know Jayson Tatum gets to the free throw line a lot. That's the first thing. Scores a lot in isolation, a little bit in the pick and roll, and in the transition as well. So the Dallas Mavericks so far in this playoffs, they've been good at defending pick and roll ball handlers. They've been good at defending in transition. Where they have a little bit soft is in isolation. So who are the best isolation scorers they've come up against? Probably SGA. SGA had a lot of success. I wouldn't say Jayson Tatum is as good. Some would argue he's better, but I personally don't think so. So he does have an okay matchup. The Dallas Mavericks probably let him play one-on-one, believe it or not. I don't believe he's going to command too much attention, but that could also give him some easy points. So Jayson Tatum, I'd probably lean to the under, but I could be a little bit, how do I say this, emotional about it. A bit biased in my opinion, because I don't like Jayson Tatum all too much. But what I'm saying there is, do your own research, because I can't tell you what the fuck this guy's going to do. Well, I do know one thing, though. He's going to take a whole lot of shots. That's for sure. And he's going to get to the free throw line a lot, because he doesn't milk a lot of those free throws. But in terms of his points, I think if you bet him under every game in this series, you'll probably be profitable by the end of it. But Jayson Tatum, I just want to see how he plays, who defends him, how do they defend him, yada, yada, yada. Looking at his rebounds, though, this has been a good prop to bet on. His line is at 9.5. He's averaging 10.5 boards in his last 10 games, 8 of his last 10. Against Dallas, he's covered this in 3 out of his last 4 games. So 1 out of the 2 games this season, 11 and 8 rebounds for Jayson Tatum. So the form this is pretty good. I'd have to lean to the over in this. At -125, I probably don't love it as much. But if we think about who's going to get these boards for the Boston Celtics, there's going to be a lot of Luka action, Kristaps Porzingis, Horford, whoever the hell it is. Probably going to spend a lot of time contesting shots. Jason Tatum most likely picks up someone like PJ Washington, so there's a little bit of weak side action. He might chill and have a bit of Derek Jones, but we'll see. I think Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum could see a little bit of Luka time as well. I don't think the Celtics go small and put Derek White or Drew Holiday on Luka. Look, potentially they could switch it up, right? But I do think Jason Tatum conserves a bit of energy, defends that weak side, and gets a lot of easy rebounds. So I said, I can see that happening. So I don't mind the rebounds play. We'll see how the first game plays out. And if I'm right, and he does do a lot of weak side defense and gets easy boards, that line will be at 10.5 real quick for game 2. And not be comfortable playing that. His assist line is at 5.5. That's cashing 5 out of his last 10 against Dallas Mavericks. He's covered this in 1 out of 4 games. He is averaging 5.7 assists, but the 2 games in this season, 5 and 3 assists for Jason Tatum, 14 and 10 potential assists. So those potential assists ain't bad at all. He's averaging 9.5 over his last 10. So if he can get the potential assists, then yeah, the overs look great. I don't like taking Jason Tatum assists. Never have. I'm probably not going to start now. His 3-point prop, 2.5 over his -130. He's cashed this in 1 of 4 games against Dallas. Hasn't been shooting 3-point ball very well this season in the playoffs, but last 2 games he has gone over. So be careful out there if you're looking to take a Jason Tatum under in his 3-point prop. Next up, we've got the Eastern Conference MVP, which is Jaylen Brown. So let's take a look at Jaylen Brown in this. His points line, 23.5. Exactly the same as Kyrie's. Jaylen Brown, though, has covered this in 8 of his last 10, averaging 26.1 points per game. Against Dallas, has had a lot of luck. He's covered this in 3 out of his last 4, including both games this season, 34 and 25 points. Jaylen Brown, does he most likely get the Derek Jones Jr. matchup? I assume so. I think Tatum might have a bit too much size, so PJ Washington probably picks up Tatum. Jaylen Brown will have a good defender on him, but still has the size advantage, I would say. So I would lean to the over in Jaylen Brown points. But my hesitation with betting Jaylen Brown is if Kristaps Porzingis plays. I think Kristaps Porzingis has an excellent matchup, and that could impact Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. So, yeah, I think both have great historical numbers, but the Porzingis thing is what leaves me a little bit cautious. So unless you get news on that, I'd be head on betting points for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Regardless of how green it looks or how good the recent form is, you have to keep in mind, in these last 10 games, there was no Kristaps Porzingis. If we look at his last 10 games with Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup, we can see Jaylen Brown has only covered 23.5 points in 3 out of his last 10 games with Porzingis, right? So he's gone under 7 times, averaging 21 points per game. So I would pause. Don't try to get early value unless you know whether Kristaps is going to play or not. So I'm not going to be betting on Jaylen Brown. Quick look at his assist line. That's at 2.5, -130 to the over. He's cashed this in 4 of his last 10. But he has cashed this in 4 straight games against the Dallas Mavericks, which is pretty interesting, averaging 4 assists. So I wonder how, and yeah, I'm really just thinking how. How does he do that? Because his last 10 hasn't been great. But the Dallas matchup does look like a good one for him. But at the same time, Dallas was a poor defensive team for at least 3 of these games. I'd probably say all of these games, not going to lie. And in the playoffs, it might be a little bit different. If Jaylen Brown crushes his assist prop, I'll eat my words. I can see it happening, and then we'll have to adjust from there. But yeah, I'm not Jaylen Brown in this one. His rebound line's at 6.5, 3 out of his last 10, averaging 5.7 boards. In head-to-head matchups, 2 out of his last 4 against Dallas. So there's no real strong read on this one. I think Jaylen Brown should spend more time on Luka than I'd say Jason Tatum. I'd probably say Jaylen Brown is. I was going to say he's a better defender, but is he? I don't know. But he probably mapped size-wise with Luka a little bit better, stronger body, similar height. So, yeah, a rebound prop here for Jaylen Brown. Another one. Let's just wait and see how this plays. We don't know if Kristaps is playing. We don't know how they're going to play defense against Luka and these Mavs. So let's just pump the brakes there. Next up, look at Kristaps Porzingis, actually. What are his lines at? So, Kristaps Porzingis. You know, one thing Kristaps Porzingis, which is always a good look, his first quarter points. 3.5 for Kristaps Porzingis. He's cashed this in 7 out of his last 10 games, averaging 5.7. Check this out. On the season, he's cashed this in 49 of 61 games at 80% hit rate. So I do like this play. I just don't know if Kristaps is going to play. But the reason why I like this is because the Boston Celtics always look to get Kristaps going early. He scores a large portion of his points at the start of the game. So Kristaps Porzingis and even Jaylen Brown, they like to go to them early because late in that game, if it's close, Jason Tatum going to take every single shot. So Kristaps in the first quarter, if he plays, I like it, right? That's what I'm thinking. 3.5, he just needs 2 buckets. That could be 2 mid-ranges. It could be Bob, who knows? But I can see him covering that with ease. I just don't know who's going to play. His points line is at 15.5. He has covered that at 74% rate on the season, but I'd be a little bit hesitant. I don't know if there's a minutes restriction. News may have come out. I haven't been too close to it, being honest with you. So Kristaps Porzingis at 15.5. Yeah, I probably can see. In head-to-head matchups, played Dallas once this season, scored 24 points in that game. 8 from 14, 4 from 8 3-pointers. So, yeah, it's a dip. He's got a good matchup if he's going to stretch the floor. He's versing some bigs that love a little bit of drop coverage. Kristaps was hopping outside. It's going to be a little bit different for him. So, yeah, Kristaps, I think he goes over. Not one that I want to bet, but that's the way that I'd be leaning. But again, I don't know if there's a minutes restriction or anything. His rebound, 6.5, 7 out of his last 10. Only had 6 boards the last time he played the Dallas Mavericks. Probably with Kristaps rebounds either. You've got the minutes restriction potentially. You've got the fact that because when you attack in the ring, Porzingis is going to attempt probably contest a whole lot of shots. Similar to Gobert in that last matchup, he didn't get many rebounds in that game. Daniel Gafford, Derek Lively, they're tipping the shit out of that ball. So, yeah, Kristaps probably take the under in his rebounds, to be honest with you. 6.5, favoring the under, it's minus 135. So at those odds, I probably wouldn't take it, but that is the way that I'd be leaning. Next up, we have Jrue Holiday. So Jrue Holiday could be primed for a big series. Some would argue the best perimeter defender that they have. And the Dallas Mavericks probably have the best scoring season. So Jrue Holiday's point signs at 12.5. He's covered this in 7 straight games, 8 out of his last 10, averaging 14.9 points. In head-to-head matchups in 2 games against Dallas this season, 17 and 11 points. So he's been decent. Really just come down to his aggressiveness, taking shots and all that type of jazz. Has been putting him up as of late. Like, not going to lie, I don't mind the over here. I wonder if Jrue or Derek White, who's going to be the primary defender on Kyrie. I think it probably makes sense for it to be Jrue, but it could be Derek White as well. You know, Jrue playing off the ball defensively, passing lanes, rebounding, all that type of stuff. But what it does mean is Jrue Holiday, Derek White, they're going to get minutes, that's for sure. They're going to get a lot of minutes, close to 40 minutes a night, I imagine. At 12.5, I honestly don't mind the over here for Jrue Holiday, but again, actually, whoa, let's not get it twisted here. Let's look at his last 10 games with Kristaps in the lineup, and we can see that he's gone under this in 9 out of 10 games with Kristaps. So I think we'll find similar trends for everybody. Kristaps Porzingis is a very important piece to the Boston Celtics puzzle. If Kristaps is going to play, I'm not betting any of the Celtics points props unless I want to bet an under. So I'll probably have to make a call on that closer to the game time. Who knows? I might even create another video of just the bets that I decide to choose. We'll see what happens. If not, you've also got Winnable. On my Winnable, you'll see when I place my bets. But Jrue Holiday, it's a pause. The points look good if there's no Porzingis, but he might play, then the points don't look as good. So, yeah. Jrue Holiday's assists, though, 4.5. 5 out of his last 10. He's covered this in both games against the Mavericks. 6 and 7 assists. If we look at his last 10 games with Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup, we can see that he's covered this in 4 of his last 10. So the assist numbers for Jrue Holiday, all over the place. Not going to lie. Looking at his rebounds, 5.5 rebounds for Jrue Holiday. He's averaging 6.1 in his last 10. He's covered this in 7 of those games. In head-to-head matchups, 7 and 2 against Dallas. 9.8 rebounds in his last 10. Again, it's so hard to bet on these Boston Celtics because we don't know how they're going to defend the Mavericks. We don't know if Kristaps Porzingis is going to play. So there's a lot of information which is up in the air. You can't make bets just based on how the last 10 games are going, right? It's the first game of a brand new series. You're going to be tripping if you do that stuff, my boy. So I don't want to start this the last series that we have for this NBA season with some fat L's in my bet. So I'd probably pump the brakes there on Drew Holiday everything until we know the status of the team. Let's have a look at Derek White. So similar to Drew Holiday, he's going to get his minutes. The question is he going to get his shots? So his points line at 14.5. He's covered in 6 of his last 10. Last 2 games against Dallas this season, 6 and 13. 2 games last season, 12 and 10. So he's gone under in 4 straight against Dallas. If we look at his last 10 games with Kristaps Porzingis, Derek White still scores 16.8 as an average, covering this line in 7 of his last 10. And then if we look at his last 10 games, he's averaging 16.2. So yeah, his numbers don't change too much with and without Kristaps Porzingis over the last 10 games. Based on that, you'd probably lean to the over, right? But again, I don't want to bet any Boston Celtics points props right now. His assist line's at 4.5, juiced to the over at minus 135. He's averaging assists in his last 10 games, but a lot of these assists came in that Indiana series. Indiana were points. So in head-to-head matchups, check that out. 1 out of 4 games against Dallas. The last game he played against Dallas had 8 assists, but keeping in mind the Boston Celtics did win that game by 28 points. It was a blowout. I don't expect a similar scoreline in this one. So for Derek White, I think we might have a good look here. Under 4.5 assists for Derek White, and that's a plus money play. I just want to check his assist numbers with Kristaps. So with Kristaps Porzingis, he's gone under in 6 out of his last 10. Miami, he went under in 4 straight games there. Portland, OKC, is a shit defensively. Somewhat Atlanta, probably not OKC, but the others all trash. So yeah, I think the under for Derek White assist could be a good look, based on assuming lower potential assists. Where's he at? 8.2 potential assists, 8.8 assists, 8 potential assists to get 5 assists. I don't think so. Especially against this Dallas team. Like who's backing up the assists against Dallas in that last series? And it was Anthony Edwards. And a lot of that was usage rate, right? They're forcing the ball out of his hands. I don't think they do that with Derek White. So yeah, the under and Derek White assists, I don't mind too much. So we'll see where we land with that one. Shit, I didn't look at his rebounds. My bad. Where's Derek White and his boards? 3.5 rebounds for Derek White. He has cashed this in 8 of his last 10, 6 consecutive games. He's gone over this. It is at minus 142 though, so keep that in mind. If we look at the head-to-head numbers, the 2 games this season, 4 and 7 rebounds. The 2 games last season, 2 and 0. This is one where I'd have to lean to the over. It just makes so much sense. 7.6 rebound chances. You only need 4 boards, but these odds are terrible. Minus 142. So daily fantasy app players, the over in Derek White rebounds is a good look. Looks somewhat safe. But I think it all depends on who he defends, right? So if there's a lot of Kyrie and Kyrie gets a lot of ball, makes life a little bit difficult for him. Then we have Al Horford. And Al Horford's someone you can't really bet on right now until you know Porzingis' status, unless you've got an early lean to it and you know what's going down. But let's talk about it. His points line at 7.5. So I think that kind of tells you that Kristaps Porzingis is going to play. So if Kristaps Porzingis is in fact going to play, because that's what these lines are telling me, it actually makes sense. If Brown's line's at 23, Tatum's at 27, Drew's at 12. So I don't like Drew's. He went under in 9 straight games. We'll go back. We'll relook at Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown again. But let's fuck around with these numbers with Kristaps in the lineup. Al Horford averaging 9.3 points per game in his last 10 games with Kristaps Porzingis. In head-to-head matchups, he scored 12 points the last game with Kristaps Porzingis. Still got 27 minutes. He was 5 from 8. So Al Horford to get 7.5, I don't hate it, but I also don't love it at the same time. Let's take a look at these boards. 5.5, that's his last 10, averaging 7.3, but that's meaningless because the big Latvian is in the game. These are his last 10 games with Kristaps Porzingis in the lineup. 7 out of his last 10 games he's covered, 4 straight, 5.8 boards. And Al Horford probably still gets decent amount of game time here. Kristaps' first game back in quite some time. So the Al Horford rebounds I don't hate, but they might be targeting him. They'll get him in the pick and roll a lot, I imagine. So that could make it difficult. But if they don't target Al Horford, then he should get heaps of easy rebounds. So let's go back and look at Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum with the Kristaps Porzingis filters. So let's go. Last 10, he's averaging 26 on the season. He's averaging, hitting this at a 50% rate. 23.3 this season. And if we say games with Kristaps Porzingis, see Jaylen Brown averages drop to 22.2. And then if we do without Porzingis, it jumps up to 25.3. So it's a 3-point swing, averaging 3 more without Porzingis in the lineup. Dallas been great defensively. I don't necessarily love the over here for Jaylen Brown if we're making the assumption that Kristaps Porzingis is going to be playing. But keeping in mind, he has Dallas with Porzingis in the lineup. He did score 25. But again, that last game was a blowout, 28-point win. So you can't really rely on that type of data. So I'd probably be hesitant to bet on Jaylen Brown's points. Next up is, let's take another look at Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum points. I think with Porzingis, I actually like Jason Tatum rebounds even more. Porzingis going to be attempting to block everything. Let's have a look. So this season, without Porzingis, Tatum averages 27.1. With Porzingis, he's averaging 23.1. So it's 4 points less with Porzingis in the lineup. Now, Porzingis may not play his full complement of minutes, so he might not be that impacted. He has played the Dallas Mavericks once with Porzingis in the lineup. He scored 32, but again, 28-point blowout loss. I would not be surprised if the Boston Celtics get balanced scoring from everyone. 10 points from Drew, 15 from Derek White, 20 from Jaylen Brown, from Jason Tatum, 15 for Porzingis. Like, I could see that happening. And most of those guys don't cover that line, which makes the Boston Celtics a tough team to bet on when it comes to scoring. Whereas Dallas Mavericks, you know that looking at buckets, Kyrie's going to have a big scoring output every 2 games. PJ Washington's probably going to be consistent around 10 to 12 games, and he might have a 15 to 20-point game in this series. Gafford might do 8 to 10 points, very similar to Lively. Derek Jones Jr. might have a game with 4 points, then a game with 15, depending on how they play him. So Dallas Mavericks, probably a little bit more predictable in where they get their points from, where these Boston Celtics, man, it could be anybody. They could attack Kyrie when Kyrie's on defense. It could be Drew Holiday attacking the rack. It could be Derek White. It could be Porzingis in a lot of pick and pop action, taking Gafford outside in the deep waters and making it rain from downtown. It could be Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown in a lot of isolations, attacking the rim, getting to the free throw line. Shit, I don't think it'd be Peyton Pritchard, not in this matchup, but yeah, it really could be anyone for the Boston Celtics. So for me, I'm a little bit hesitant to bet on any of those guys to score some points, but we do have a good list of leans. A lot of guys from Dallas, because again, I think their gameplay is a little bit more predictable. But I've got quite a few leans. And look, all I'm going to say is I hope you found this video helpful, because it was fun to go through it. I'll probably join a live stream. My boy Josh from Lend Your Bets, if he'll have me. I'm assuming he will, and talk about what we find. But I'll keep looking at some other plays throughout the week, some data, some things that I may have missed. But let's see where we go. It's going to be a great series. It's going to be fun. I am hoping Dallas wins it. So if I'm a little bit biased in my call outs around Dallas, that is the reason why. But I do thank you if you've made it this far. If you have it this far, put a comment in the comment section. Say Mavs in 6. Actually, you don't have to do Mavs in 6. I ask that you put your prediction. Who wins this series and in how many games? Put that in the comment section if you made it this far. I'm thinking Mavs in 6. I'm hopeful it's Mavs in 6. Actually, give me 7. Mavs in 7 would be nice. Game 7 would be dope to see. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've got for you, lads. Sign up to my Winnable. You'll see you'll get notified when I do place my bets for this particular game. And be sure to check out that survey. Fill it out for me. Give me the information that I need so I know whether or not to create an online course for sports betting. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.
Sub to the channel because your boy's getting busy. Coming to you live from the west side of Sydney. We've got the free picks and the juice and the daily. It's all free. You don't even have to pay me.